The ANC's attempted VAT hike to 17% will squeeze 60 billion rand from taxpayers, while the ANC blows 270 billion annually on social grants that trap. The ANC is going to tax us into poverty. If you still believe the ANC cares about this country, you're either delusional, brainwashed, or you're part of the problem.
Guys, Rob Hersov is blowing hot again at the ANC, and this time he's actually arguing it's all the whole issue with the taxes, you know, this whole VAT increase and taxes and what South Africa should do with the taxes going forward. You know, one of the truth bombs actually makes me, and on this channel I've really been passionate about this whole thing with SASSA, because I really feel that I don't know if any African countries are the place where they should be toying with a welfare state. You know, I think if I'm able to just simply use common sense, I think a welfare state should be kind of like a system that erupts as a result of the productivity of a certain space or a certain nation state, so to speak. And so if that productivity, that level of productivity isn't yet there, I really don't think that we in Africa need a certain kind of welfare state to prop up, because it just puts us into dependency. It's sort of like we need the mindset of productivity. When you listen to the way the Asian tigers of the East Asian countries actually built themselves, I think this was now in the 1970s and 80s. You see, these guys were really productive. Taiwan, the likes of Taiwan, the likes of Japan, you know, they were so productive, really productive. I think that's where most African countries need. We need to get our citizens into productivity and excellence before thinking about a welfare state. So this whole thing with SASSA, Rob Hersov is really angry, blowing hot that despite all of the expenditure problems South Africa is actually facing, all the crisis it's actually going through, it's still every year blowing 260 billion, okay, 260 billion rand on SASSA. And I think if I listen to who was it, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, I think it was Ernst Roost, or they actually argued that almost half of the country is on some form of social grant. All right, so with all the problems, all the trappings South Africa is in at the moment, with really, I don't really want to really see productivity going on in the society now, because with BEE, I think a lot of businesses are closing down. I see a lot of your comments on this channel. With BEE, a lot of people are not incentivized to expand their businesses and all that. Productivity is declining. People are getting more and more unemployed. 33.3% unemployment rate, 82 murders a day. You know, people changing their tax residency away from South Africa. We don't necessarily need a sort of like dependency mindset in this kind of situation. All right, so to blow 260 billion every single year for SASSA. I was speaking to a friend, I told you guys in my last video, he said that if the ANC doesn't pay SASSA for 1 month, bro, there could be a revolution the next day. Okay, and so that's how terribly low that dependency mindset has actually caught up with our brothers and our sisters in South Africa going forward. And I think that's really problematic in my understanding. But anyway, Rob Hersov is still blowing hot, arguing that South Africa has actually gone from a powerhouse, right, to a bankrupt welfare state. South Africa used to be, I remember then when during my PhD studies, I used to read certain papers on how South Africa had some control on some nuclear, arsenal, and, the kind of like industries that was coming out of South Africa. And I used to wonder, is it the same South Africa? But now that's kind of like created Kwasemi and really studying and understanding the demise and how things have actually been crumbling, bro, I think, it's quite a sad one, especially for those who saw South Africa during this time of its peak, when there was some peak productivity and all that, to where it is at the moment. I think it's not a really encouraging one. Rob Hersov argues that, this whole GNU parade is actually a GNU of the ANC. That's a contradiction for me. But anyway, he also really blasts the ANC that, the whole thing with the socialist agenda has actually... Let's just quickly listen to Rob Hersov really break down these really scary, disturbing stats on how South Africa has actually crumbled in a way, in his language, and I'll be back for some further thoughts.
South Africa's unemployment rate hit 35% in 2024, a direct result of ANC's policies that strangle entrepreneurs with BEE red tape and expropriation laws. The ANC's attempted VAT hike to 17% will squeeze 60 billion rand from taxpayers, while the ANC blows 270 billion annually on social grants that trap generations in dependency. and fixed investment as a share of GDP has plummeted from 19% in 2013 to 15% today. So to hit 3% growth, we need 25 to 30%. Impossible with ANC's dogma. We're deindustrializing, and under the new Expropriation Act, investors can't calculate compensation. It's based on national interest, not market value. Result, capital flees the country. Since 1994, the ANC has turned South Africa from Africa's powerhouse to a bankrupt, crime-ridden, socialist welfare state. Debt servicing, the amount we have to pay back, now exceeds health and education spending. And under the attempted VAT and tax hike, the ANC's government of national unity has been a farce. They've crossed every red line from expropriation to race-based policies, while the DA and others played doormat. Trump's executive order threatens AGOA, a death blow to our 1.2 trillion trade surplus with the US. All because ANC clowns cozy up to Iran and Russia. South Africa's GDP per capita is $6,700. Singapore's is $131,000. Do you choose free market prosperity or socialism and poverty? Why does Cyril Ramaphosa's clown cabinet have 32 ministers? Norway runs a 1.4 trillion economy with 15. Ours, a 1.5 trillion debt bomb. The ANC cadres looted Eskom, looted the post office, destroyed South African Airways, and ripped the heart out of Transnet. 1.5 trillion rand has been stolen by the ANC and their Gupta friends since 1994. The ANC is going to tax us into poverty. If you still believe the ANC cares about this country, you're either delusional, brainwashed, or you're part of the problem.
Yeah, so like you could hear him, right? He actually really thinks that, you know, the ANC has actually ripped the heart out of, you know, state-owned enterprises, SOEs, and many things like Transnet, Denel. I actually began a small study on Denel to really understand what these, you know, state-owned enterprises were, what were they capable of at the same time. I'll be back with my results, but the collapse of these state-owned enterprises, also with Eskom, we saw, you know, the Minister of Electricity the other day, Rabahokpa, actually apologizing to South Africans because of the stage 6, was it the stage 6, you know, load shedding that had to be initiated because of some issues, you know. So that was actually a sad one for me, because I really respect that Minister of Electricity a lot, and I like his views. He has the potential to be a critical, you know, especially when it comes to analyzing systems. He has that kind of, that gift, you know. But Rob Hersov still argues that, you know, South Africa is on the brink of economic collapse now. I'm suspecting that AGOA will be gone soon, because I don't see Donald Trump really, the vibe I'm getting from Donald Trump, I really don't think that he would want South Africa to still keep the AGOA relationship. And, you know, with the back and forth argument Kali Creel of AfriForum has been having with SABC, I really don't think that AGOA, I'm hoping and praying anyway that, you know, he's been pleading with South Africa to the US to keep South Africa in AGOA, but I really don't know how that goes. But if AGOA goes, bro, that's going to be a major shock to the economy of South Africa. But then also, Rob Hersov is also angry about this whole, like you could hear, this whole ministry of, there are different ministries. He actually thinks that if he gets into government, he's going to go the Millet way of Argentina and use a chainsaw to cut them. One of them is the Ministry of Women. He's not able to understand what South Africa needs a Ministry of Women for, that kind of. But I think if you listen to the ANC ministers anyway, they would argue also that, you know, women's rights actually needs a special kind of department that probably needs a certain kind of representation, and that's why the women's ministry actually. But those are stories for another days. And, you know, it's just quite sad anyway. I think at the inception of the GNU, there was a rise in the, you know, promise of the rand actually rose in the markets, but it actually seems to be slumping down now in the wake of this whole world alarm on expropriation without compensation. Private investors are beginning to really slowly perceive South Africa in a different light, and you know, investment actually seems to be sort of like now really scary, or investors are scared to now invest in South Africa, and that's probably going to affect the rand and, you know, the pensions. I have some of my friends in South Africa are really on pension, and many times I really wish and pray that things will go well so that that they can actually keep having their pension, because if the pension is out, that actually affected my own mother in Nigeria. You know, she had to work for the government for many years, but yet was denied her pension to its fullest. And so those are kind of like the things I really wouldn't want to see for especially the aged in South Africa who have actually served the nation. But yet with all of these calamities, I really hope that, you know, the rand still stands, and also at least their pensions are still won't evaporate, as in the words of Rob Hersov. But anyway, what do you think about Rob Hersov breakdown here, and this whole the facts I've actually given in this interview? Share your thoughts in the comments.